We're 14 days away from night one of the 2026 NFL Draft, and on today's show, I want to try a new exercise because we've talked a lot about the number 5 overall pick, and we've shared a good amount of time on pick number 37. But on today's show, I want to go over the most likely players the Giants are going to pick at 5 and what player I would want for them to pick at 37 as a package deal with that number 5 overall pick. You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. I went and looked up the odds to be the number 5 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, and Sonny Styles is the runaway favorite at plus 175. Jeremiyah Love has actually leapfrogged Caleb Downs. Downs was always the number 2 favorite. Now he finds himself in the 3rd spot, and Francis Mauigoa is in spot number 4. And then there is a very large gap until you get to the 5th favorite, which is Cardinal Tate, and he's at like plus 800. So going on today's show, I'm going to show you players I think the Giants should pick in round 2, with all 4 of these guys being to pick at number 5. I'll quickly say this. I think it's going to be hard for the Giants to mess up the number 5 pick. Like if you select any of those 4 players that we just mentioned, I think that would be a great selection for the Giants. And if you could find a way to pull off what you did last year where you traded back into round 1, and I guess what I mean by that is you played the board correctly, could you potentially trade down in round 1, stay within range of some of those players, and maybe pick up an additional day 2 or early day 3 pick? So I'm not ruling down a trade down in round 1, and we've actually got an idea coming up later on today's show. Let's start with, though, the runaway favorite to be the number 5 overall selection, and that is Sonny Styles, the inside linebacker, absolute freak of nature out of Ohio State. Look, I think Sonny Styles would be a home run pick. For a long time, he was number 1 on my dream draft board. Now he's number 2 or 2B, whichever one you want to call it. So who should the Giants try to target in round 2 if you do select Sonny Styles? I think you have to lean offensive guard in this scenario, unless you just want to put all your chips into the table, push them all in, go all in, and say, I want to get a run-stopping defensive tackle, I want to get Sonny Styles, and I want to reshape this defense with my first 2 picks in the NFL Draft. But for this scenario, I think offensive guard, which you don't have a starter right now. I know they've made some moves over the past 72 hours with Fulele and Lucas Patrick, but I think offensive guard. Let's go over the ones that I think could be available at 37. Emmanuel Pregnon is kind of my dream round 2 pick if you are going offensive line. This is someone that I think is one of the more powerful offensive linemen in this class. A little bit older, going to be 25 years old as a rookie. So there's 2 ways to look at that. Has he reached his ceiling? And B, I think he's honestly probably the most ready to plug and play and start day 1 of the round 2 targets. Pregnon gives you a physicality that I don't think a lot of other linemen in this class do, and he would build on top of that identity that you want to be a smash-mouth football team. Chase Bisontis is also someone that I think is absolutely in play for the Giants at number 37. A little bit leaner than I would say Pregnon, a little bit more agile. Bisontis, his first year at A&M, played some right tackle as well. I think he still has a lot more developing to do. Not even 23 years old yet. I think he's actually 22 years old, maybe turning 23 in his rookie season. But a little bit more fluid of an athlete, a little bit more of a finesse player. I don't want to get that mistaken for someone that he's not mean and he can't latch on to someone and put people in the dirt. I just think Pregnon does that a little bit better. I think Bisontis may have a higher floor, though, as a pass blocker down the line. Keelan Rutledge is also one of my favorite interior offensive linemen in day 2. We talked about him, and ESPN via Matt Miller said he was the perfect pick for the New York Giants. I think 37 is maybe a little bit too early. If you find a way to trade down in round 1, you stay inside the top 50, top 45, I think Rutledge could be in play. I think Jennings Dunker out of Iowa, who played tackle, who is going to transition to guard in the National Football League, I think that he is also a trade down candidate. If you trade down and Rutledge and Dunker are still on the board, I would take Rutledge, but I think Dunker is someone that still could be a plug-and-play guard in the National Football League. The reason I lean offensive lineman in round 2, if you do take Sonny Styles in round 1, is I just have a hard time believing the Giants aren't going to surround Jackson Dart with anybody in round 1 or round 2 in this class. Like, I find it hard to believe they are going to leave round 1 and round 2 and not select an offensive player, not get Jackson Dart some help, whether that is an offensive guard, a receiver, or somebody else. So in this scenario, we're going Sonny Styles in round 1, and then we are back on the clock at number 37. We're taking Emmanuel Pregnon. So you get a guy that's going to shore up your run defense in Sonny Styles, maybe wear the green dot for the next 12 years, and hopefully Emmanuel Pregnon is your starting right guard or starting left guard. He played left guard in college. Maybe you put him at left and you move Runyon to right, but hopefully a starting guard for the next decade. Let's move on to Jeremiyah Love, who is the second favorite player for the Giants via Las Vegas odds to be the pick at number 5. I put out a video earlier this morning, my perfect mock draft. And it was about identity, and it was about selecting Jeremiyah Love in round 1. And then when you are back on the clock at 37, it was taking an offensive guard. And that is what I am hoping and I am wishing that the New York Giants do. You get the playmaker in round 1 that you can't get in round 2, and then you invest in that pick. Again, you double down. You invest in Jeremiyah Love by selecting someone like Pregnon or Bisontis or Rutledge in round 2. And you also do that by investing in Jackson Dart. But then I had the thought of, does a defensive tackle make a little bit more sense here? Try to split up your assets and improve your defense and improve your offense with the only 2 picks you have inside the top 105. So my dream is still to go Jeremiyah Love, an offensive guard. But I think in this scenario, and also just the exercise, trying to familiarize myself and all of you of different strategies, we're going to talk about some defensive tackles with this spot. Caden McDonald is largely looked at as the best defensive tackle in this draft. I don't know if he will make it to 37, but if he is, like, no one's going to replace Dexter Lawrence. Caden McDonald can't even hold a candle to what Dexter Lawrence can do as a pass rusher. But if you want to talk about getting a new nose tackle in here, getting someone in here that's going to make a major difference in the run game, that is Caden McDonald. He is your classic nose tackle, bowling ball guy that does not get pushed off his spot. Arguably the best in this class. I'm not so sure he'll be there, though, at 37. Peter Woods is also an extremely fascinating player and case study in this class. It's a guy that was projected to go top 5, top 10 before the college football season. Then the production really wasn't there this past year for Clemson. Still has upside. He shows flashes where he can be a pass rushing interior defensive lineman. He shows flashes of getting off his blocks and making splash plays in the run game. But there's also other times where he goes multiple series without even being a factor whatsoever. I think if he is there at 37, the Giants could swing for the fences on him. Caleb Banks, arguably the most intriguing prospect in this class at 6'6", 6'8", over 300 pounds. But he's had some injuries throughout his college career, kind of derail him from the success and production that he could have had. As you can see, only 6 tackles last year, but a really athletic player who flashes high-end play with power and burst, has the potential to control opposing linemen with his hands. Some people think he has Chris Jones-like ability from the Kansas City Chiefs, but he is one of the bigger question marks as well in this class. Christian Miller is someone that I have been a fan of throughout this entire draft cycle. Like, I think he's a guy that's a plug-and-play player. He can give you juice as a pass rusher, and he can give you juice as a run stopper. Probably the best blend and hybrid player on that defensive line. Went to Georgia, was great in the SEC. Nothing off the field is a problem for him. Love talking to him as well at the NFL Combine. If Miller is there at 37, I'm going to be very happy if the Giants pick him. We talked about Caden McDonald earlier as that run-stopping, hole stuffing, and just big player inside the middle of that defensive line. That's the same thing with Lee Hunter. Just McDonald is a little bit better at it than him. Hunter probably will be there at 37. Maybe he goes at the back end of round 1 or right before it. But if you're looking for that run-stopping defensive tackle who's not going to give you much as a pass rusher, Hunter could be the pick there at 37. But I'm going to go with Christian Miller. I think he's got a pretty good shot to be there. And if you leave round 1 with Jeremiyah Love, a plug-and-play starter with a very high floors rookie year at running back, and then Christian Miller, all those same things can be said about him at defensive line, I think we would all be happy for that. So let's move on to Caleb Downs right now, who has the 3rd best odds to be the pick at number 5. I'll just say this. I think Caleb Downs is more of a trade-down target for the Giants than sticking and picking and selecting him at number 5. I believe Joe Shane thinks that he can be the smartest man in the room here and trade down to maybe pick 6 or maybe pick 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 and still take Caleb Downs and maybe adding another top 75 pick. So I went inside the PFF mock draft simulator. The New Orleans Saints said they were interested when I was on the clock at number 5, and we fell down from pick number 5 to pick number 8, and they are giving us their second round pick, number 42. I think there is a world where maybe the Giants have to include maybe their 6th round pick, two of their 6th round picks going back. Maybe you add your your 5th round selection as well, but PFF accepted this trade, and the Giants are now on the clock at pick number 37 and pick number 42 after falling down to the 8th selection and still being able to select Caleb Downs. So now you have an abundance of riches and premium draft capital, and we're going to swing for the fences while also filling some needs. In this mock draft simulator I ran, Christian Miller was not there. Not really any of those top defensive tackles we talked about, but Lee Hunter was there. And if you can go and get Caleb Downs and then you take Lee Hunter, who is someone that is going to be an immediate factor for you in the run game, you take your run-stopping ability as a defense to another level. Caleb Downs, like I know everybody knows about him, but he is going to be a dominant player against the run. Then you add Lee Hunter, and you add 2 big-time players to your run defense who I also think Caleb Downs will be great against the pass and potentially as a pass rusher. Then you're back on the clock a couple of picks later at selection number 42, and Chase Bisontis was still on the board. Emmanuel Pregnon was not, but Bisontis was there. And like we talked about with him, I think he could play early on in his NFL career. I think there's still a lot of development there, and there are ways for him to continue to get better. But maybe it's not week 1, maybe it's not week 2, maybe it is. Maybe he does start right off the jump. But like if you told me the Giants leave the NFL draft and prior to being on the clock at selection 105, they walk out of there with Caleb Downs, Lee Hunter, and Chase Bisontis, like that would be a home run signing. So like the best way I think the Giants can maximize their picks is maybe trading down a little bit in round 1, picking up another premium selection, swinging for the fences with that pick in Caleb Downs, and then finding 2 players at 37 as well as 42 who can start for you early on in their careers and make differences in Lee Hunter and Chase Bisontis. Last player we're going to talk about as a package pick duo is Francis Mauigoa, who was just mocked to the New York Giants by Peter Schrager. Schrager doesn't really do mock drafts. He usually does 2 or 3 every single year. His last and final mock draft in 2025, he had the Giants selecting Abdul Carter and trading back into the round 1 for Jackson Dart. And in 2024, he had the Giants selecting Malik Neighbors as well. So he is on a hot streak right now of 3 selections made and 3 selections correct for the Giants. He had him taking Francis Mauigoa. So let's talk about what a path for pick number 37 could be if he is the selection. I think you go defensive line here. I think there is a world where you could go somewhere else, but I go back to that John Harbaugh quote. We want to make and build the best offensive line and the best defensive line in football. And if you could walk out of the draft with Francis Mauigoa, or maybe you take a Caleb Banks, a risky pick in round 2, or you get a Christian Miller, or you select a Lee Hunter. Like, we're going big on big, and we're trying to win in the trenches. I also think a round 2 trade down is absolutely in play here. Can you find a way where you fall down 8 to 12 selections, and then you pick up another top 70, top 80 pick in this draft? I think that's absolutely on the board. And if you stick and pick, I also think you may look to the cornerback room to go and select some players, like a guy like Colton Hood out of Tennessee, who I think is arguably one of the best day 2 corners in this draft and might even find himself sneaking in to round 1, coming off a big breakout season with Tennessee after transferring from Colorado. A physical player in man and press coverage, along with run support. That sounds like a John Harbaugh type of corner. Maybe a guy like D'Angelo Pons, who had a lot of success at Indiana last year. He's an ultra-competitive dude, and yeah, he may be a little bit smaller in stature, but he plays with a lot of heart, man. He is one competitive SOB. He is sticky in coverage as well. He fared really well on the outside and in the slot last year against some really premier receivers. Pons, if he was 6'1", would be a top 15 pick in this class. Maybe you just say F it, and we're going to go and take a linebacker here, which you do still need, and you take the best turnover-creating player in college football history in Jacob Rodriguez, like, that's a trait that transfers. That's a skill that translates to the NFL. You take a home run here with that selection. You walk out with Mauigoa and Jacob Rodriguez. That'd be pretty dang sweet. You could also get another corner like Chris Johnson, who's getting a lot of buzz right now. He's someone that some people have a round 1 grade on, some people round 2, and some people even round 3. Grades all over the board. I think he's pretty sticky in coverage. He's a good athlete. And he's willing to fight versus bigger receivers as well. I just wonder if he will ever have the ability to be a CB1. But heck, if you take a CB2 and he's a starting CB2 for you for a long time, I'm all down for that. And I'm down for all of the players that we talked about. They would all be really good picks for the New York Giants at 37. But how about we go all in on building around Jackson Dart if you do take Francis Mauigoa at pick number 5, and then when you are on the clock at 105, then you go defensive tackle. Then when you're on the clock again in round 5, you go cornerback. And then you could take another defensive tackle, corner, and linebacker in round 6. Let's take a lineman to protect Jackson Dart, and then maybe a weapon to give him as well. Denzel Boston is one of the receivers that I think could be on the board around that pick number 37. Absolutely a world where Boston does go at the tail end of round 1 and might not be there at 37. But like, I know Giants fans have been clamoring and wanting for a big-bodied outside wide receiver that wins 50-50 contested catch situations since the number 17 hung it up for Big Blue. Not saying Denzel Boston is Plaxico Burress, but he fits that build, he fits that archetype, and he would give you a really nice red zone threat. Casey Concepcion is someone the New York Giants are absolutely interested in. And he is a guy that when he touches the ball, he is a threat to end up dancing in the end zone and putting 6 points on the board every time he does it. He can give you an impact in the kick return and punt return game. He is someone that could beat you over the top. He's a really explosive wide receiver. And like we talked about with Denzel Boston, I'm not 100% sure Casey is there, but I think there is a pretty good chance. Another receiver that could be on the board when the Giants are on the clock is Chris Bell. If Bell didn't have that nasty knee injury at the end of the season, I'd be all over him as being a New York Giant. Big, strong, fast, playmaker, explosiveness. Honestly, kind of reminds me of like a less juiced up Des Bryant. Like, that's what I see when I watch Chris Bell as a player, but I always am a little bit concerned about taking a player who suffered an ACL at the end of the season, and I'm not so sure when he is going to be back. I really like Jeremy Bernard. Like, he is just sound. He is just solid. And I don't mean to say, like, he is solid in a negative way. I mean that in the utmost positive way. Like, there's not many things that he does not do well. Like, kind of reminds me of, like when you talk about Terry McLaurin, like, just solid. Like, he's really good. He's good at everything. I think a lot of that stuff transfers for Jeremy Bernard. Not the exact same comp, not the exact same play style. I think he's a little bit stronger, but he's a good blocker. He runs good routes. He's strong at the catch point. He's a good athlete, and he can get behind you. And he had a nose for the end zone, 7 touchdowns last year for Alabama. But I'm going to take KC Concepcion with this pick. He was still on the board when I was on the clock at 37. And in the 4th scenario, we're getting a right guard. Really is a right tackle, but we'll bounce him into right guard early on in his career. We'll see what happens with Illuminor down the line. Maybe he leaves after his current contract and you move Mauigoa to right tackle. But I'm getting someone to protect Jackson Dart, and then I'm getting someone to give Jackson Dart a target that is explosive. So option number 1, the best linebacker and a damn good starting right guard. The best offensive playmaker in Jeremiyah Love. And a day 1 starter at defensive tackle. A trade down that still nets you Caleb Downs, gets you a damn good run-stopping defensive tackle, and a guy in Bisontis who I think maybe needs to sit for a little bit, but if he had to, could start early on. And then you get Francis Mauigoa and KC Concepcion all in on building around Dart. Which one and which one of these paths do you want to see the Giants do the most? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Sound off and comment for me. For me, I just look at option number 3 right there, and I see a world where you get Caleb Downs, who might be the best player in this class. You add a 2nd-round pick, and you walk out of day 2 of the NFL draft with Caleb Downs and 2 2nd-round picks and productive players at positions of need. I think that draft does a good job of marrying need and best player available, and I think that just kind of goes to echo that a trade down might be in the works and might actually be the best plan for the New York Giants, but I would still love to see, if no trade down, Jeremiyah Love and Emmanuel Pregnon. Like, let's get an explosive athlete on this offense, and let's protect Jackson Dart. Like, I'm not upset with any of those plays. Like, I even want to find a way to get Jacob Rodriguez on this team if you don't get Sonny Styles. I don't know how they messed this draft up unless they just don't know what they're doing. But I think John Harbaugh's got it figured out. Appreciate everybody for clicking on today's show. If you haven't yet, hit that thumbs up icon and give me a follow on social media.